Oh, he got it just in time. Hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Normally we do Freelance Fridays, but today, in lieu of that, we're doing Freelance Fridays. You know, he's back. He's back. He's back. I want to put a Jack Nicholson clip in here from The Shining. He's back, but we just had the attorney on about copyright infringement, so I didn't do it, Matthew. I'm on good behavior today. He's a fan favorite. He's been dropping knowledge bombs on your face, guys. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Jonathan Stark. He's in the house. Holla, you guys. What's up? All right, here's the abbreviated thing. In case you missed him last time, and you better watch that episode. Okay? He's a former software developer. He's an avid martial artist, so if you see him in the street, he'll kick your butt. His mission is to rid the world of hourly billing. What an incredible mission he's on. He's written 5 books translated in 7 languages. Today's episode, we're going to talk about how to transform from a commodity freelancer to an in-demand consultant. He's written a book about this. It's called The Freelancer's Roadmap. So we're going to be taking your questions today, you guys, but we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be using Slido.com, no relation, just a third cousin, Slido.com, okay? Type in this number, W523. You'll be able to submit your question, and you can upvote or downvote questions. That way, we're going to tackle the most the most favorite questions, the ones that are most in demand, the ones that you guys want answered first in that order, okay? Go to Slido.com. You can use your phone. You can use your desktop. Type in that code W523. All right. Jonathan, welcome back. Welcome back. I'm going to ask you this question just to start off with. How do you define freelancer? And is that different than being an independent business owner?
Absolutely. Yeah. Even if it's just a mental difference, I think there's a big difference. And it comes it's right in the word. So if you think about the word freelancing, freelance,
yes,
it's like an available lance, like an available weapon. It's like, and if you look at the root of the word, it means mercenary. And if you look up mercenary is, basically the definition is someone who cares more about making money than the ethics that they engage in to make that money. Yeah. So it's pretty bad.
It is pretty bad.
Right. And I work with a lot of freelancers, and I know that they aren't, they're ethical people who are trying to do a good job for their clients. But I feel like maybe that stigma persists, and that clients have a tendency to view freelancers as mercenaries. They certainly treat them as mercenaries in lots of cases. And of course, I'm going to suggest that it has a lot to do with hourly billing, but it has a lot to do with your worldview as a freelancer. And thinking that sort of mentality especially when you're billing by the hour, that, hey, I put in the hours, they owe me the money, it's a mercenary attitude. And if you put in hours and you didn't improve that person's business, I don't think they should pay you, frankly. So if that means what that means is that you need to start out your client relationships understanding how to deliver value to them, how to satisfy them, how to make them happier, how to make their business better in some way, tangible or intangible, quantitative or qualitative, that is valuable to them. And then you can charge based on that. And those numbers can get really big.
Okay, we're just going to start off real easy like that, huh, Jonathan?
We didn't even welcome
freelancer,
to the show.
You're a merc. You're a total merc. All you care about is money, and we don't care about that. So, wow, we're just going to try to end and abolish the word freelancer right now, at least in your mind. And I know it's a very common term. And right. Ben Burns and I have debated about this before, and it's like, don't use that word freelance. Okay, so there's lots of ways, according to the post that you put up on your website, in terms of how one might consider themselves a freelancer. And here's a couple of ways that you describe. You might be a freelancer, a contractor, using or staff augmentation, a developer, designer, copywriter, somebody's looking for work on Upwork and any of those platforms, right? We're going to lump all these people in, and you're having struggles. All right. Now, I'd like for you to explain why your first year as a freelancer, you have a built-in marketing story.
Yeah. So let's say you're working at, some day job, full-time employment, and you gain some skill at that job. You become good at whatever, Photoshop, Adobe Animate, something. You become good at it. And for whatever reason, you start to get disgruntled. You start to get dissatisfied with that job. Maybe you feel like they don't pay you enough, or maybe you think your boss doesn't appreciate you, or maybe, you're just not getting any career development. Whatever the reason is, it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. A lot of people in that situation, they think, you know what? they're billing me out at this hour to their clients, or, my salary is so low and I'm getting, whatever it is. They think, oh, I'm going to go out and do this on my own. So they basically tell the boss, take this job and shove it. And they hang out their own shingle and they're going to start freelancing. And, it's natural. That's a big life change for someone who, if that's the first time you've worked for yourself, that's a huge life change. You're going to tell people about that. You're going to tell your family and friends and colleagues, your other people you work with are all going to know about it. So everybody in your life is going to know this story. Mm-hmm. And it's got this built-in underdog thing to it. Everybody wants you to succeed. There's probably some story behind why you quit that gets told. Maybe your boss was harassing you. Oh, who knows? There's some story though. And that story is going to spread. It's going to spread through your network. And those folks are going to want to help you. They're going to say, oh, here's this person who's, putting their, going out in the world and taking this risk. And people just want to help someone in that situation. So as scary as it can be to make that leap, the first year is actually not the hardest year because you've got that built-in marketing story. Mm-hmm. People want to help you. They're introducing their friends to you to maybe there's a good fit. Maybe you can do some design for them or build a website. When it starts to get hard is 12 to 24 months in, when that story doesn't have the magic anymore. And now you're just another freelancer scrapping for work. And there's nothing interesting about it. You've exhausted your network. So all the easy low-hanging fruit is gone. Maybe you've done some jobs for folks that were friends of friends or whatever, but those jobs are over now. So when you hit right around, 18 months, right around there.
Yes.
Depending on the size of your network, that's when you realize that you haven't done any marketing. You don't know how to sell. You don't know how to do all of the other business things that your ex-boss used to do for you that you didn't appreciate or weren't even aware of. So now all of a sudden you realize that, oh, wait a second, I didn't become a freelancer. I started a business and I haven't really done anything to improve my business skills. Maybe I'm better at Photoshop or whatever my craft is, but I haven't really gotten better at the business stuff.
It's interesting that you say like that first year you have a built-in marketing story because people want to root for you. I think it's part of the American spirit to kind of root for the underdog. Like I gave it to the man and I'm on my own and I was oppressed and now I'm a free mercenary, whatever it is. And you tell that story, but oddly enough, I'm gonna guess that many in our audience don't even take advantage of that built-in marketing story. So you're talking about like, yeah, that story runs out, but some of you guys haven't even used that story yet. Right?
Yeah, that could be.
And you gave many examples on the site. It's like, you could say this, and it was really cool to see that. Okay, so now that you are kind of beyond that, take this job and shove it, and it's old news, how do you generate interest and leads now? Now that work is starting to dry up, you've exhausted that circle of friends and family, and now nobody cares about you anymore. What do you do?
Right. Yeah, it's really hard because once you get to that point, I'm going to answer that, but first I want to paint a picture of how hard it is.
Okay.
Because once you get to that point, the sort of amateur marketer, the refuge of someone who doesn't know how to market and doesn't know how to do a good job in the sales process is they lower their price.
Oh.
So that's the obvious thing to do. So you're probably getting paid by the hour, and then you're getting a trickle of leads, maybe a little bit of word of mouth. And every time you get one of those, you're so desperate to land that job that you're either going to offer a lower hourly rate than you'd like to just to get the work, or you're going to give a project estimate that is way too low. Mm-hmm. And you're creating this vicious cycle where you have to work harder, more hours to make the same or less money, and it gives you less time to work on your business instead of just doing client work, working in your business. So it's super hard if you get to that point. And what I'm hoping is people are listening and they're like, well, I'm not to the end of my network yet. I haven't, maybe I should start doing marketing now.
Yeah.
So once you get to that point, you need to figure out how to carve out some time to get better at marketing. And this is a huge topic, of course, but I think the first thing to do is kind of like just decide what you want to be when you grow up. Recognize that you're running a business now. Recognize that part of running a business is marketing, and take it seriously. This is something that if you don't do, you're going to end up in the feast-famine cycle. You're going to be on that hamster wheel. You're going to be working harder and harder for less money over time. You have to become a marketer. If you don't, you might as well go back and beg your boss for your old job back. If you don't want to do marketing, you're going to have a really, really hard time. You could hire someone to do it, but someone in this phase is not going to have the kind of budget to hire anyone good. So you probably need to learn how to do it. And the first step, the easiest, well, it's not easy, but the most bang for the buck thing that you could do is create a positioning statement for yourself, a laser focused positioning statement to use in your marketing. Start talking about your business, talking about what you do in a different way, in a much more focused way. And you can still do the same kind of projects, and you can still take on whatever kind of clients come through the door, but you want to begin talking about your business in a much more focused way. So what I mean by that is, when I say talking about your business, when you meet people at, say, a conference or a meetup or whatever networking event in person, talking about your business differently, but also on your website, in your business cards, during your product delivery, everything you do, start talking about your business in a much more focused way.
All right. Fantastic, guys. I know there's some confusion here, I think from my own team, I believe. Maybe I sent out the wrong email, but you actually have to go to Slido, SLIDO.com, not slide.do, guys, Slido.com. Type in that word, the password W523, that's the hashtag you use, and then you can enter into it, and then you guys can up and down vote questions as they come in.
Yeah, there's some people that are already asking questions.
All right. Do we have some upvotes?
Yeah, I'm on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good. Okay. What's I mean, I have my own questions, but I don't want to hog up all of Jonathan's time. Let's open it up. There's a bunch of people in the room. What's the first best question that people want to ask?
I have one here.
Okay. Mike, please.
Mike, please.
Yes. Share, Ricky.
All
right. Go ahead.
So I forgot who it's from, but I thought it was a great question because it's very simple. It says, if I'm not a specialist in strategy, should I still sell it?
If I'm not this is someone
really
who
good at it. I mean, should you still be trying to sell yourself like that you do
strategy? Okay, that's an interesting question.
That's a weird curveball question.
All right. Yeah, way off topic.
All right, okay.
Sorry, okay. We can do a different one.
No. Hold on. Let Jonathan do his thing.
No, I can riff on this.
Yes.
So I'm going to assume that I'm going to rephrase the question in the way that I typically get this kind of a question.
Yeah.
So usually when someone asks this kind of a question, they probably heard me talking about the importance of selling things that are farther upstream, like strategy, pure design, planning type things, not implementation, but strategic level things. That's where really, really high value, high margin work exists. So I'm imagining that that's this kind of question. People who usually ask this are usually at the implementation layer of the thing that they provide. In other words, someone delivers them a design, or someone delivers them a strategy, or someone delivers them a plan, and they execute it. They build it, they do the creative execution, they write the code or whatever it is. They create it's kind of like an architect giving their plans to the builder. So this question is kind of like from a builder who say, hey, how do I become an architect? So the answer to that is, you need to learn how to get good at it. The question asker said that they didn't know how to do it yet. Well, you need to learn how to do it before you can sell it. So the first thing to do would be to understand what strategy is and how it's different than tactics, which we can get into if you like. But the way that the kind of back doorway into it is when you're working with a client on an implementation, you're building something out. It's probably maybe it's a decent sized project, 3 months, 6 months, a year, and you're doing this big website build or whatever it is. Keep your eyes or your ears peeled for the client asking you a question in your area of expertise that doesn't necessarily relate to the project. So the example I usually give is, you're doing a website build out. Maybe you're implementing a really complicated WordPress theme and adding all these plugins. And you're doing all this grunt work for them to execute this new design or implement this new design. And then your project contact pulls you aside and says, hey, we've got a different project, and we know that you are kind of a web expert. Would you mind sitting in a meeting with the CEO and some other folks to talk about, cloud architecture or migrating to the cloud off of their local servers, or some kind of a security thing, or a rebrand that they're thinking about doing, or a new expansion they're planning to do into another region, and they need the whole website localized. In other words, they want you to sit in a meeting and ask for your advice. That is the kind of thing you want to look for. When someone does that, do not charge them by the hour to sit in that meeting. Just go to the meeting, because you basically just got handed a gift. They are they are basically opening up their minds and viewing you as a consultant in that moment. They want to get your advice. That's what a consultant does. If someone goes to consult with you, that's what a consultant does. A lot of freelancers who build websites or slice Photoshop files, they say, oh, Chris told me to stop calling myself a freelancer. I'm going to start calling myself a consultant, but not actually change what you do. That doesn't work. So you have to actually start consulting, and that means giving people advice when they ask questions. So long answer, wait for, or perhaps try to encourage folks to start asking you for advice, basically. So while you're working, doing execution or implementation work for a client, look for any opportunities to give advice. Not unasked for, but you know what I mean? Like you want them to be like, maybe you overhear someone talking about whatever, and you're like, oh, you know, if you guys need help with that, I could give you some answers. Be helpful and try and foster that, because then they'll start thinking of you. Hopefully, this is the tricky part, is to get them to start thinking of you in a different way. Get out of the friend zone. And you know, this is how you get out of the friend zone. You slowly present yourself in a way that they don't view you. They don't currently view you as a consultant. They view you as someone they tell what to do. So to start viewing you as a partner or a peer level person whose advice they value is a big shift. So when that door opens, run through it.
Okay, I have so many questions, many follow-up kinds of things to talk to you about. I love that example. Let's kind of dive into this. I think you, as part of a natural evolution of somebody who does a really good job, is that, you know, you get beyond that first, like, do I know you? Do I like you? You earn the client's trust. And so they invite you into these kinds of opportunities, right? Like, just like the one that you said, like, hey, can you sit in a meeting and give us your thoughts on X, Y, Z? So you say, yes, run through that door. Don't worry about charging. Just, you've been invited. This is your first opportunity to kind of level up. So how do you structure that? Do you just do it to kind of be exposed? Or is there a roadmap to go from that to being a consultant and charging for value?
So to me, this opportunity is an educational one. The odds of you actually closing a deal with an existing implementation client that is strategic in nature are pretty low.
Okay.
My experience, it's much easier to just find new clients that meet you in that way. They immediately see you as that, and you don't have to reposition yourself. It's hard to get new clients, and you do already have trust with this existing client, but changing where you are pigeonholed in their mind is incredibly hard. So on balance, I think it sort of depends on your level of skill to begin with. It could be that you're really good at this already, but you just haven't been charging for it. Like a lot of people I meet, not, you know, maybe 25%, let's say, a non-trivial percentage of people I work with do strategic engagements at the beginning of each implementation. They just don't charge for it, or they charge by the hour for it.
Right.
And they think of it as like the kickoff, or like a discovery process or design phase that has to happen before they can start building stuff. If you're already doing that kind of work, it's probably not going to be as hard for you to sort of productize that strategy engagement and sell it independently. But it's still going to be hard to sell to an existing client because you already put them through it, and they don't need that kind of thing constantly.
Right.
That's like something you only need every time you're going to build a house. You don't need an architect every day. So it's just really tricky to sell it to existing clients. So for folks who don't currently do any kind of strategic stuff, they don't do any planning stuff, they're not doing, design's a hard word to use here because I don't mean design execution. I mean designing. Like you're coming up with a new status quo. You're coming up with a whole new brand or a whole new, you know, I don't know, whatever, you know,
conversion funnel, something.
Sure, something brand new, a brand new idea. You're building a map, or you're building a diagram, or you're building a schedule. You're not building files and like this tactical stuff that is much more interchangeable type of work. So yeah, so once you, for someone who doesn't have a lot of experience doing that and is basically just an order taker, and they feel like they're being micromanaged all the time, and when they get a new prospect or lead, the lead is like, hey, we want you to do these 25 things. We've got this backlog in Jira, and we want you to blast through it and knock this stuff out. That client is not going to hire you for strategy. And if that's the only kind of work that you're doing, you're probably not that great at delivering strategy. So when the opportunity comes up, and I said run through the door, it's for you to learn how to do it better.
Okay.
I think that's the opportunity there, is to be in the room with people who are like what you want your future buyers to be like. But these people are probably not going to write you a check for it. It's just educational. It's an educational opportunity for you.
Okay. I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because I've been able to do this successfully. You're saying to us, and it makes perfect sense to me, it's very difficult to pivot from where people see you as today to something else. Probably those are easier to do with new relationships, right? And
right.
I've had a couple of instances before when we were transitioning from doing creative services to doing brand strategy, and people used to come to our shop mostly to produce video. That's how most people know of us. For 2 decades, they know us. So somebody would come into their meeting, usually the decision maker, and I would sit down and chat. And they already have in their mind, Chris, we want you to make a video for us. That's what we need. We need a video. I'll let them talk for a little bit. And then what I say to them is like, okay, look, I'm happy to make a video for you. But before we do that, I'd like to engage you in asking you a few questions. Do you have 20 to 30 minutes so I can help you to understand the problem in a deeper, more meaningful way? This is the bridge to the strategic thing I'm about to deliver to them. So then then they're like, yeah, okay. And I say usually I charge quite a bit of money for this, usually $20,000, but you didn't come here for that. I don't want to force it on you. So what I'd start to do immediately is ask him, why are we having this conversation to begin with? The video part is the decision, like the tail end of a decision process. What problem are you trying to solve? Like, oh, okay, so here's the thing. We don't have great penetration in the retail space, blah, blah, blah. So they start talking, and then I help to kind of just break it down. And I see something happen in them, that their mind seems to open up right before me. And they're like, wow, I came in here for X. I'm walking away with Y. And then I say at the end of that meeting, if you enjoyed that, I'd love to engage with you in a strategic level discussion first. For that, I charge X, and then we can proceed with that. And that's all I want to do. I don't want to get into any deliverables. I just want to talk about how I can be a consultant to help you solve your problem. Your thoughts, please.
I wouldn't change a thing about that. It's exactly what I do.
Oh.
So, but you've got 20 years of experience doing business with people before you can have a conversation like that.
Right.
So, and, confidence and swagger, cocky bastard after all, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Right. So
hashtag that.
I'm talking to the person who asked this question, who's new to it and is looking for ways to like start to climb that tree. Once you've got your lines down, exactly what it's almost identical to what I do. But it takes experience, and you need to be able, there's so much subtle stuff going on in that conversation. You don't want to accidentally give off what Blair Enns calls the stench of desperation,
right.
like being needy or anything like that. You need to be really secure. You need to be perfectly fine with losing the business. You need to be perfectly fine with them saying no, but you need to take over that meeting, drive the meeting, and that takes a while to get good at. So that's a goal. So like what you just described is what people should be working toward.
Okay.
And getting experience with that with existing clients is an interesting way to do it. And then once you've got a little bit of experience, perhaps even some results, maybe you can get a testimonial from a client for whom you did one of these, call it a free strategy session.
Right.
I have a follow-up question for that.
Then you can start to put that on your website. You can package that up as a particular thing. You can start to talk about that with some level of confidence, because you're not just making it up.
Right. Okay, I think Ricky has a follow-up question. I'm just going to beg my team, please speak into the mic.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
How do you apply value-based pricing?
Wait, say that one more time in English, please.
How's everybody doing? Okay,
try again.
We didn't even welcome Jonathan, so
yeah.
welcome, Jonathan. Yeah.
All right. Don't worry about it, guys. Come on, ask your question.
How do you apply value-based pricing when selling only strategy?
We need to turn up his mic a little bit. It's a little low, right?
Is it low?
It feels a little low.
It's very low.
It's very low. Say it again.
Here we go.
How do you apply
There we go.
value-based pricing when selling only strategy?
That's from the Slido thing, right?
It is.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
I thought he
Okay.
had a follow-up question.
Yeah. I thought you had a follow-up question,
seems-
man.
that
No, I have a follow-up. Sorry,
No,
he stole
everybody,
my
hold
thing.
on. Hey, guys, chill
No,
out.
this
Hey.
one's really good. It
Yeah.
follows
okay,
up
wait.
perfectly.
I want to make sure we understand the word follow-up
Yeah,
question
Ricky. It
seems
based
like
on
it was
what
the
you
same.
just heard, not a random question from outer space.
He was talking about
No, this one's
Okay,
really
okay,
on
go ahead.
topic.
Into the
Okay,
mic,
so
please.
a guy's asking. A lot of our audience is a little lower level, and they're on
Yes.
Fiverr a lot of the time. That's their 100% source of getting jobs. So a guy's asking, if I want to stop doing Fiverr work and get a real client outside of Fiverr, what should I do? So some real
That too
tactical.
is not a follow-up question.
Is it not?
No.
Taking us off
You guys,
topic.
are you actually listening to Jonathan? All right, hold on. Let me just stand out here. Okay, good. All right, you guys, when you have a real follow-up question, let me know. When I ask for questions from the audience, that's a perfect question. I like that, but Matthew, do you have a follow-up question for
So do I.
Jonathan? You guys are interrupting him for no good reason.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My
It's
bad.
okay. Go ahead, Matthew.
Yeah, no, I'm here. Nobody introduced me. I'm just hiding in the corner. Anyway, I have badass lighting.
Yes, you do.
So my follow-up question is, it sounds like you're just practicing this. You're in these situations where clients are already hiring you for your skill to execute, right? And can you guys hear me? all right?
Yeah, that's better, Matt.
Okay, great. So now I just lost my train of thought.
So yeah, so you're in the situation where someone's hiring you to execute.
Right, and then you're just trying to ask these deep questions, your why questions, your 3 why questions, right? And you're just trying to surface all of these issues. You're trying to make them understand that they have bigger problems, and that you're actually thinking about their problems in a more, in a broader scale, in a further scale, other than just pixels and colors. You're talking to them about things that are more important for their business. So just by doing this, just by the sheer process of asking them these why questions, you're able to move up, right? You're able to start establishing this. And I guess with your situation, Chris, it sounded like you were able to still do this with the same client. Like eventually you got paid with the same client to get paid for strategy.
Yeah.
Where it sounded like Jonathan was saying that this is something that you practice on current clients and then you could apply this to new ones. I'm just wondering if we could unpack that a little bit, because I feel like there's a lot of people in this situation where they're already serving their clients for some high-end execution.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other tactical things that we can do to start getting people to start charging for their strategy?
Okay, so a couple things there, several things there. So I think at least I understood the Chris example to be that this was a client who came for execution or implementation work, but it wasn't, I mean, it might have been a past client, but it didn't sound like a current project was ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the beginning of this particular segment of the relationship, which is your opening. That's your opening to perhaps pivot them to a strategic engagement. The previous question asker didn't have experience doing strategy, so my answer was all about getting the experience. Mm-hmm. So there's sort of 2 different things going on there. It's like, how do I get the experience doing it? And how, and at what point in the relationship can I open that conversation? The answer is the beginning. So I don't know if that clarifies it all. And then I guess the other thing was a separate Fiverr question that's unrelated.
Yes. Do you want to answer that one, or?
The Fiverr question's actually pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. If you're, I mean, just look at the situation on Fiverr, like the name of it, right? The whole premise of Fiverr is about the cost and like how much it is, right, that it's cheap.
Right.
So, but it's not just Fiverr, it's like Upwork and job boards and all these other places. And I understand that this is like people's lifeblood, especially when they're starting out. The thing that you have to do is come up, and this is a marketing thing, you have to do some marketing, and the marketing piece of it is you have to differentiate yourself from all of the other people on Fiverr and Upwork and Craigslist in a way that's meaningful to the people who you want to work with. If it's meaningful to you and your peers, it doesn't matter. If your desired target market does not see a meaningful difference between you and anybody else on Fiverr, there's one thing that they do understand, and that's how much you cost. Mm-hmm. So if they don't understand, if the untrained eye cannot tell the difference between Jane and Joe, they're going to go with the cheaper one.
Right.
They might not go with the very cheapest one in the entire list, because that sends a signal that it's low value or they're bad or new or not that great. Mm-hmm. But they're probably going to go somewhere around the middle, and they're going to pick someone based almost completely on price. So if you look the same to the clients that you want to work with, you're doomed to race to zero. There's no way around it. You have to race to the top. And the way that you do that is you come up with something about you that is different in a meaningful way to the people you want to work with. And it's tough I can't give you a silver bullet here, but I can tell you that because it's different for everybody, that's kind of the point. Mm-hmm. But it needs to be it needs to be really specific. I talked to someone yesterday who he said, "Oh, I'm a designer." I was like, "Okay, like what kind of design? That's giant, right?"
Right.
And I assumed web design, but he was like, "Yeah, well, I do web design, but I used to do interior design, so sometimes I do theater sets also." You know, and just, like talk about anything. Like they'll just do anything. And it just screams desperation. It's just like, "Oh, I'll do anything. Give me $50 and I'll wash your car." You know, you need to be very specific. I can't tell people, you know, an anonymous audience what to pick to be specific, but you need to pick something really specific and talk about your business in that way. Even if once you take on a client, you do other things too, that's fine, because you've established a relationship and you're having communications and it's one-on-one, you've got trust. But in your marketing, that tip of the spear, you know, marketing, people always talk about the tip of the spear. I don't think that's a great analogy, but this is what they mean when marketers talk about the tip of the spear. It needs to be pointy, that is sharp, focused. It's like an analogy I like better is a campfire. So if you put a bunch of kindling on the ground, I don't care how hot a day it is. No, this is probably a terrible analogy. You guys are in California. Apologies, but usually the ground will not automatically catch on fire. But if you take a magnifying glass and focus the energy on a particular point, you can light a piece of wood on fire.
Right.
That focus is what you need to do to start the fire. So starting the fire is the beginning. Once you have a nice campfire going, you can probably put the magnifying glass down. But for people who are beginning, focus is the way you take your limited resources and you create this like flame, this fledgling business. Again, apologies for the fire metaphor. That was awful.
No, that's great. I think I understand that. And I think I know you're trying to do it as broad as possible. But so what you're saying is pick a niche, specialize, and make sure that you're tackling very specific things for your niche that's going to be valuable to that audience. So if I was a graphic designer and I'm focusing on brand identity, I might start making marketing pieces on maybe 10 tips to improve your logo today. Or brand is not just the logo, but it's more about the personality, how it acts and speaks in different situations. So I just want to give a few tactical examples so people can map it to their own situation. And these would be pieces of content like we're doing, right? This is video, blogging, putting on your LinkedIn. These are posts that you just put out there so that the community around you can start seeing what you're about and can gather around this campfire that you're starting to set. Right.
Yeah, I agree. Yes. Share. So, I mean, that's like a very easy marketing tactic, but before you it takes a lot of energy, as you guys well know. So the first thing that you want before you put all that energy in to create these pieces, which hopefully will be valuable for a long time, evergreen, things that will work, that will continue to benefit you in a year, 2 years, 3 years, create a flywheel effect. You want to create stuff after you have an axle for the flywheel. You don't want to start creating tons of stuff until you know that you're onto something. So I talk about this laser focused positioning statement. You want to find something like the example that you gave, we just do branding. I think that's still way too broad. I don't really know, but I imagine that is not going to be like, someone's not going to come to your website and say, finally, someone who focuses just on branding.
Right.
I feel like there's probably a lot of options there. So it needs to be even more specific. We focus on branding just for co-working spaces, or we focus on branding just for people who are environmentalists, or we focus on branding just for people who, I don't know, run karate schools.
Right.
Something so that when someone lands on their page, their eyes are like, I can't believe this exists. This is exactly what I need.
Right.
Wait, I got to jump in here. Jonathan, I got your email and you talked about this, and I love the way you write. So I'm going to geek out a little bit here, and that you talk about positioning and being very specific. I think it was a couple of weeks ago, you talked about a gym, like you want to open up a gym. And yeah, it's like everybody wants to open up a gym. Is that enough of a prompt for you to talk about that, or do you need a little bit of more of a trigger?
maybe a little more. I don't even
Okay,
remember that one.
I
write a
remember
lot,
all the
so.
things you write. And you talked about like you're a gym for moms who are just trying to get back into shape. And then you,
That's old. Yep, that's a good one. Yeah, so I mean, here's the thing: when people hear that, when people hear like focusing on a vertical or a demographic or a psychographic or an audience, it triggers this fear reflex. I have a friend, Philip Morgan. He's a positioning guru, and he just talks about this positioning fear reflex. He just calls it the fear. And when people imagine going from, hey, I'll do anything, I'll do Photoshop, I'll do animation, I'll design your set for a play, they think, they're like, geez, I only made X dollars last year casting this really wide net, and I didn't catch that many fish, and I barely got by working my tail off. So, and starts here telling me that I should just focus down on, branding for, what I'd say, environmentalists. That's crazy. I only had one environmentalist project all last year. And the brain has this like loss aversion thing where they think, oh, well, that means I would only have 10% of the next year. I'll only have 10% of the business I had last year. I'll get fewer leads because I'm focusing too narrowly on a particular market. But there are millions of environmentalists. There's probably hundreds of thousands of businesses that have an environmental mission. And that is way too many clients for you to service. And the paradox of this like laser focused positioning is like the smaller your focus, the bigger the market gets, the more effective your marketing gets, the more leads you'll get, the more easier it is for you to write for them. I think this is a little bit of a side note, but I think it's really hard to write or create content for people when you don't know who you're talking to. Right. So if you don't understand your audience, that is, to me, that's the source of a lot of writer's block, is because you keep on having these false starts like, well, do I need to describe the meaning of this word, or were they going to understand this word?
Right.
Am I being too technical? Am I being too broad? Am I going over their heads? Am I condescending to them? If you're having these kinds of writer's block problems, it's probably because you don't know who you're talking to. You haven't picked a specific enough sort of avatar to even know what to say. When people are talking, they don't get speaker's block, as Seth Godin says, because you know who you're talking to. So once you pick someone, it becomes so much easier to write, so much easier to create content for them, so much easier to create value, so much easier to deliver value when they're paying for it, whether you're giving it away for free or, as like I do with my email list, or they're paying for it and you're doing a strategy session. It's just way easier because you communicate so much better, because you understand them, you have an empathy for their situation, and you just click. So it becomes like a virtuous cycle, because the more you learn about environmentalist businesses and the unique challenges that they face, you'll become the only option. They'll start telling their friends, like, oh, they go to a conference of like-minded people, and someone's like, man, your rebrand was amazing. How'd you do that? Oh, well, we talked to these guys. You got to talk to them. They were amazing. So now word of mouth becomes a real factor that you can control. It's not just random thing.
Right. Okay. I've spoken to our audience many times, and this comes up quite a bit, and Amber perfectly captures this. She says, that's interesting. I've always been told to keep your services very broad to seem more desirable. I don't know who's saying this to people, but this is a disservice to yourself and to our industry. And I think it also resonates with creatives because they get bored. They don't want to just work on one thing and go deep. They want to play with a little bit of this. So when I look at portfolios, they send me things like, oh, here's some life drawing that I did, and here's one poster I did, and here's one really bad website I did. And I'm like, I don't know what you do, and you're not good at any of them, so I'm done. Right? So
Right,
Jonathan, please give us the definitive answer to this thing so we can put this thing to bed. We're going to edit this thing down, and we're going to loop it for 1,000 times for you guys. Okay?
Yeah. So what you just described, that like, this is part of the fear. One of the 3 bullet points under what the fear is, or what causes the fear. I said the first one, which is that you're afraid you're not going to get any more clients. And that's just the paradox of it. You'll get more clients. I can almost guarantee it. So the next thing is that I'll get bored. If I specialize, I'll get bored. And if you look at any person who's ever given a TED Talk, every single one of them is a specialist, every single one. And they don't look bored to me. So it's like the idea that skimming across the surface of a big lake is the only way to maintain your interest or to not get bored is ridiculous. I'm just saying, jump out of the boat and go way down to the bottom. And it's just as much surface area that you're covering. It's just in a different direction. And having that, and it's fine to be sort of T-shaped. I don't know if this is a common term, but have a little bit of an understanding of a broad range of topics. You almost can't avoid having that after you've got a few years of experience. You're going to be exposed to a lot of different things. So you get this general idea about all the things that sort of circle around your skill set, but then go deep on something. And whether it is going really focused into a vertical like pizza places or dentists or some sort of vertical market, or it's a psychographic specialty, like I said, environmentalists, or whatever it is, or demographic like soccer moms, like whatever the vertical or demographic or psychographic specialty is, or it could be part of your skill set. I don't know. You tell me, what's like a hyper-focused type of skill set, like, I don't know, creating Flash animations or something like that, it's not even around anymore, but something super specific. I don't love those. I don't love horizontal specializations as much because I'm still leaving too much to chance, and I'm a control freak. I want to have control over my business. And if I'm a horizontal specialist where I just get amazing at augmented reality, I'm amazing at creating building augmented reality into iOS apps. That's a horizontal specialization. I'd like that a lot better if the specialization was I add augmented reality to
education.
iOS apps I was going to say big like Fortune 500 retailers.
Okay.
Yeah, like IKEA, Target. It focus on doing that particular horizontal skill that you love. You're in love with this. You just think it's super fun to create these like virtual objects in physical space, but then sell it to people. Pick someone who's going to benefit greatly from that particular skill set, and just go. You don't have to bet your whole business on it. Picture it as like a marketing campaign, like a 6-month marketing campaign. I'm an AR expert, and for 6 months, I'm going to try and get clients that are in the retail space, physical retail, Fortune 500 companies. All right. Start connecting with them on LinkedIn, write blog posts that are of interest to them, interview people who have worked with them, interview people who work inside of those companies, start creating connections with those people, creating content for those people, delivering value to those people. You're going to start getting leads because here you are showing up in front of all of these people in this delightful, attractive target market that you selected, and you're wearing a t-shirt or a hat that says, I do AR.
Right. It's a real babe magnet.
Right.
That's our next hat, you guys. I do AR.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That was awesome. Okay. Wow. I mean, you guys, okay, I'm going to just restate this really quickly for you guys. The thing that you have to do is you have to kind of think beyond the short term because you're looking for the next buck. You got to make rent. You got to buy diapers, whatever you got to do. And it's kind of hard to get out of that mindset to start thinking longer term. It's going to take time to develop a specialization, a niche, a vertical expertise. But if you set your mind to it, you can do it. I love the tip that you gave. Like today, you are not an AR expert, but in 6 to 12 months, you will be. And one of the things that you can do is to start marketing yourself is just to interview people who are either AR experts or who are looking for it. And you can write blog posts. You can share what you learn. So you're building a community and an audience with you while you get there. So by the time you're ready, they'll be calling you up as the AR expert. It doesn't happen overnight, but you got to think long term. And that's one just great way. That was a hot tip. Sorry, Jonathan, go ahead.
You become the obvious choice. And it takes 18 months. Like it's, if you like pick a really clear focus and you stick with it and you do it, a few hours, at least a few hours a week, I'd like to hear 10 hours a week you put into it. It'll take you probably 18 months to become that go-to person. That's just like, whoa, I am like magically getting leads. Like people are just like recommending me to their friends left and right. But you start to feel traction around, usually no faster than a year, but usually it's around 18 months.
Okay. Now, Matthew, in a minute, we're going to take your questions from Slido. Matthew, I think you need to ask those. There's the number one hot question that I think both Ricky and Aaron want to ask on behalf of our audience. But before we do that, I need to show you guys something because I just want to, it took me a little while to create this graphic because I was trying to encapsulate some of the things that Jonathan's talking about. when he's talking about somebody going on Fiverr or Upwork or 99 Designs, what is the buyer mindset? What are they coming into that with? And most of the times they're there to shop based on price, meaning lowest price wins. So it's going to be very hard for you to separate yourself out. I mean, you could do handstands and juggle chainsaws, but you're still going to lose out to a lower price person, okay? So then the other kind of buyer mindset is the person who we've described before as a price fisher, and they're super indecisive. And we need to recognize the mindset of these people quickly so we know we should spend time or we should just get the heck out of Dodge. The third type is the know-it-all client. Like, I know more than you. Like, oh, I'm also an artist and designer. And those people I run away from. It's like, no, you already have all the answers, don't you? So really, you're just looking for hands to execute. The type of buyer that you're looking for, and you guys, go ahead and type it in right now. What's the fourth type of buyer that you're looking for? Go ahead and drop it in the comments on YouTube. I'll give you 5 seconds because I know there's a little bit of delay. Of course, the value person, the one who wants results. They don't really care about price. And you know these people because they usually shop and buy very expensive things. They don't really care what it costs. They care more about how it makes them feel or the results that they get. And if you can switch your conversation away from the price, definitely run away from that. Move into the fourth quadrant so that you're talking about results. That's when you start to be able to command value-based pricing. Now, based on that, Matthew, take it away. Ask the number one hottest question on Slido right now. What is it?
Yeah, so on Slido, the number one upvoted question is, how do you apply value-based pricing when selling only strategy?
It's a good question.
Sure. Well,
good question.
The answer is the same. It's the same for anything. How do you value price anything? And I got to start off by saying value pricing cuts both ways. It's not this magic bullet that is going to suddenly make you rich. It could be that what you're doing is not worth anything to anyone. And if you do value pricing, your prices are still going to be super low because, the example I usually use is you teach the Vulcan language to people and no one cares. Like, you're not going to value price that. I mean, I'm a Trekkie, so maybe, but it's just not, you might love it. Or calligraphy is another one. Actually, you guys, you're big customers of calligraphy and illustration. But in general, the average person is not going to pay $200 an hour for like some calligraphy, even though that person might have spent 20 years, 30 years perfecting their art. They might be the best in the world. I just don't need it. It's not worth anything to me. It's worth probably a lot more to you guys. It's going to put it on a t-shirt and make a ton of money off of it. So value pricing is not a magic bullet. It cuts both ways. So whenever you go to value price something, the thing that you need to find out, and it's not easy, and you kind of have to dance around it a little bit. You need to figure out what the thing that they're talking about, let's call it a project or engagement. What is the engagement worth to them? That's it. And when you figure out what it's worth to them, it's never going to be exact, but roughly within an order of magnitude anyway, then you can set a price that's less than that. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, we really need you for a strategic engagement. We're thinking of reinventing our retail experience, bricks and mortar retail experience with an augmented reality mobile application. Immediately I hear that and I'm like, giant amount of work. This is going to be a huge project. This will be very expensive. But I also hear self-diagnosis. The patient is diagnosing their own problem, or they're prescribing their own solution, I should say. And so I'm going to do exactly what Chris said before. I'm going to listen to them. They're going to bring and dump all of the information about the reason why they think they need an augmented reality application to transform their bricks and mortar retail experience. And then I'm going to sit back and say, all right, this is everything you described to me screams giant project. This is a 7-figure project probably. So before you spend that money, before you take this risk, because someone will get fired if this goes wrong, right? Someone sitting around this table will get fired if this goes wrong. So, and it won't be me. So, right? So, let's back up for a second. And can you walk me through what you're trying to achieve here? How are we going to measure this? Why would you do it like that? The whole why question thing we talked about before. And eventually they're going to have to come down. Eventually they're going to have to come up with some kind of measurement, or I won't take the job. Because if you don't have some kind of measurement, you've got scope creep. So if I have some kind of measurement, could be tangible, could be intangible, could be qualitative, fine, I can measure it. Net promoter score or focus groups or something, I can measure it. User testing, I will be able to measure it. And they know what it is because they're already measuring it. That's why they know they need to do this project, or that's why they think they need to do this project. But I want to determine that the prescription or the therapy that they're prescribing for themselves is actually going to work. They might just have shiny object syndrome, and that happens a lot. So it could be that they've decided that they need a series of really sexy videos or something. And it's like, okay, I'm happy to do that for you. Just like Chris said, happy to do that for you, but let's make sure that this is going to be a profitable engagement for both of us, not just me. So what are you expecting these videos to do? How are you going to know if we hit a home run? How are we going to know if this is a huge success? What would it look like if this blew up in our faces? What are you going to be looking at? So I basically begin with the end in mind. How am I going to deliver amazing customer satisfaction here? In order to know that, I need to know how they're going to judge the results of the project, because they will, whether it's subconscious or conscious, they're going to judge the outcome of the project. They might not blame you if it doesn't go well. They might think it's their fault, but I don't want that either. I don't want to be blameless at the end. I want them to build a statue of me outside the building at the end. I want them to be like, man, that was the best money we ever spent. Can we give you a testimonial? We're going to recommend you to all our friends. Can we hire you again, down the road? So all of this is to say that if you go through that conversation and you get to the end and they don't really need the video, they don't really need the augmented reality app, they don't really need any of that, or even if it's a strategy session. Oh, yeah, we came to you, we wanted you to do an innovation workshop, but now that we're talking through it, I think we actually have a morale problem. And I would say, all right, I think you're right. I don't help people with morale problems, but I know someone who does. So, it's like not magic. You can't just like value price everything and all of a sudden you're rich. So you go in, you figure out what it's worth to the people. You set a price that's less than what it's worth to them. And it's guesswork, but you can get good at it. And then you give them a proposal for a few options where you can help move that needle for them. So the classic question I would say, if they came to me for strategy, and they said, hey, we want you to do this strategy engagement, like an off-site strategic planning meeting with the entire IT team, I'd say, all right, why? Why not do that? What's going to happen if we don't do that? And they'll tell me what the bad result is. And then I'll say, all right, what would a good result be? And the difference between the bad result and the good result, that delta, that's the value. So if I think I can do something in that space that's going to improve things, I'll say, all right, well, here's a $5,000 option. Here's a, $12,000 option. Here's a $50,000 option. Here are different things we can do, different guarantees for each one, or different expectations for each one, different level of involvement for each one. And using the three options approach is how I sort of mitigate the risk of leaving money on the table. And also it makes it easier to close deals, but it mitigates the risk of leaving money on the table when I give three pretty divergent price options. So long answer to that question, but it's a good question.
Right. So if I could summarize that, I think what I heard is that you just have to ask enough questions to get them to say it. You just have to ask the questions to surface it. They have to tell you what it's worth so that you can capture a fraction of that, a percentage of that. And then that's when you provide the three price options, where the highest option would be your most level of engagement on there. And then the cheapest option would be the least amount of engagement that you would actually put into it to help them out.
Yep.
All right. So in case you guys are joining us, and I apologize, some of you guys are on mobile and you can't switch back and forth between Slido and YouTube because it cuts the stream off. And I'm going to put up the screen here so you guys can see it. Jonathan, can you see my Slido screen or no?
No, you
No.
cannot.
Okay, I'll switch things. Okay, give me 1 second, guys, and I'll switch that for you. Matthew, what else are we going to talk about?
Oh, well, I feel like Jonathan's been covering a lot of these. But let's ask. There's a question here from Derek Elliott, and he asked, do you devalue yourself as a consultant if you are also performing the actual work?
Oh, good one.
Ooh.
Great question. Yeah.
Woo!
So here's the thing there. The short answer is yes, kind of. So, yeah. So, I mean, imagine if the architect then was like pounding nails, right? It doesn't make sense.
Right.
But, a surgeon has the skills to go pierce someone's ears, but that is going to, at a pagoda in the mall, but that would be a terrible use of their time, and it would totally make the reputation, it would be terrible for their reputation. Like, why is this brain surgeon in here piercing kids' ears? It doesn't make sense.
Right.
That said, people have a tendency to start out at the lower, what I would call altitude of engagement, where they start out in the earlier phases doing support and maintenance. You're basically, you're kind of like the nothing against janitors, but you're basically the maintenance person in the building, and you're helping maintain an existing status quo. And the client who hires you to do that is going to see you that way, and it's going to be really hard for you to move up a level. The next level being implementation. So the person who builds the building, the person who's given a plan for a new status quo and creates the new status quo that has been given to them. The next level down will then maintain it once it's built, but the middle level implements it. A lot of people operate, probably a lot of people on this call operate at one of those two levels or somewhere right on the border. They're doing support and maintenance type work, and occasionally they're getting new build type stuff or creation stuff, but not creative. So I know you use creativity in your job, but you're still being told what to do. So at the highest level, you're working with the client to define the new status quo, which will then be handed down the chain. So anytime you've got a foot in both of those areas, it does tend to devalue in the client's eyes. So when you take on a new client, you always want to take them on at the highest possible level that you're confident delivering. So all of your marketing, this is very broad because people are in different stages, but ideally your marketing would be all about the highest level altitude that you offer. And as again, Blair Enns and David T. Baker, they would say you want your new clients to come in through that door, the highest level door. You want them to come in through the strategy door. So you are the most highly positioned in their minds. You are seen as a peer, a partner, not a vendor, not a pair of hands. You're seen as smarts. You're seen as expertise. You're seen as brains. And in a situation like that, you're not going to get micromanaged. You're not going to get second guessed. People are going to take your advice. It's a much more fun way to operate if you have the skills to do it. Not everyone does. You need to grow into those skills. You can build them, but not everyone has them right now. So if you then say, okay, now that we've made this plan, we'll build it for you. I know a lot of developers who do this. It's not impossible. You can do it. But I think I think as a goal, you should be looking to slough off any lower tier work. So a lot of times I'll meet with someone and they're basically a developer and they build stuff. They're at that middle level, implementation level. They still do some support and maintenance work. I am almost, in very rare circumstances, will I not say, get rid of that support and maintenance work. Fire those clients nicely, like let them, transition them to someone else, but stop doing that support and maintenance work. Unless you're going to just do that and you're going to set up your team to just crush it on support and maintenance. You're going to operate at thin margins, but at scale, fine. But if you're a solo operator or a small firm, try and get rid of that layer and just operate at this middle layer where while you're trying to get this higher level stuff where you're creating architecture diagrams or drawing up cloud migration plans, things that are much more high level. For a while, you will still need to also execute them. And a lot of times they'll ask you to because they trust you now and you came up with a plan so you understand it.
Right.
But if you do it, I feel like that is, it's lower profit work, frankly.
Yes.
So over time, I found myself being like, why am I doing these really risky long-term projects when I could just do the strategy stuff? And eventually it takes time, but eventually I just transitioned into pure strategy stuff. One last thing is, if you're operating at the advice level where you're giving strategy and plans and pure design to people and then implement it, it's a little bit tough it's a fine line to walk. It's a tightrope between if the advice is you should hire me to build this giant project, someone says, what should we do? You should hire me. That's kind of, it's tough to trust that motivation. I tried it once and it was a mistake. Not that I couldn't have worked it out, but the problem is when you're giving people advice on how to spend their money, which is a great place to be in, then advising that they spend it with you creates a perceived, at least perceived conflict of interest. So not only does it devalue you, but it makes it hard for them to trust your advice, because it's easy to imagine that you're not impartial. And having someone who, at executive levels of a company, having someone who's going to give the straight dope, unvarnished truth to them all the time is extremely valuable, because they're used to being just yes to death. So having someone that's going to tell it to them straight is very valuable, and jeopardizing that in any way, I always found very scary. So I ended up jettisoning that layer of my business with these new, I would have advisory retainers with businesses, and I just refused to do any kind of implementation work. I just introduced them to people who I trusted.
Right. We got started a little bit late, Jonathan. I want to be respectful of your time, and I love the long kind of answers that are just really just deep and thorough. But I'm going to try and ask you now, because we want to try and hit as many of these questions as possible and extract as much knowledge from you in the time remaining. So I'm going to queue up. Yeah, I'm going to queue up Aaron, because Aaron wanted to ask a question. So Aaron, you get the next question. I'm on Slido right now. So guys, the number one question right now comes from Tom. How do you price? Did we already ask this? How do you price strategic engagements when you're not offering implementation? Should you use fixed prices or price based on value to the client?
You could do either.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, maybe that was too short. Give us two more sentences, please.
Value,
yeah.
If you price based on value, you'll leave less money on the table, but you'll have a much harder sales process. If you fix price in advance, you sell it as a productized service, it's $10,000 for strategy engagement. Much easier to sell.
Nice.
But you'll leave money on the table.
I was like, yes, I'm with you. Oh, I'm leaving money on the table. Shoot. All right. Just to make a nod to the international audience that we have people from Bulgaria, we have people from Ethiopia, and believe it or not, somebody said, I'm from North Korea. So here's a question from Kendi. He's asking, or she, as a designer working out of a non-English speaking country, it's hard for us to decide if it's better to establish ourselves internationally or locally. That's not even a question, but that was the number 2 top rated question.
Right.
Thoughts, sir?
I understand the question.
Okay, good. Oh man, you read internet.
I get a lot of international people. So
okay.
The core problem is that probably what this person is saying is that operating in the U.S. or maybe Europe, there's just a different GDP. It's a different financial situation. Regardless of political boundaries, what I would say is, if you're going to pick a target market in whatever way that I described before, demographic, psychographic, vertical, whatever, if you're going to pick one, you might as well pick the one with the most money that you feel like you can confidently interact with. So it's not as easy as just saying, I'm a designer in, I forgot where you said, but let's say I'm a designer in Pakistan and I want to work with, I'm going to only work with like Fortune 50 CEOs. Well, good luck. I mean, if you've actually got the confidence to do that, great. You could probably, if you have the confidence to do that and you actually have the skills to back it up, you might be able to do that. But that's very hard. So because those people are, for obvious reasons, I suppose. So what I would say is target a market that you feel you could operate as a peer and a partner with people at the highest levels of the company that you're selling to, and pick the ones that are swimming in the most money, because more money someone has, the less they value any certain amount. So like $10 to me when I was 18 was worth a lot more to me than it is now. And when people have more money, they value it less. And what do they value? They value their time. They'd much rather they have more money than time versus more time than money. So you want to find people who have more money than time, bigger budgets, that sort of thing, who are not so high up that you feel intimidated by them, but are high enough up that they would really like to solve problems by writing checks. And you just be the person who solves the problems. Tell me what the problems are and I will solve them. Not tell me what to do, but tell me what the problems are and I will fix them, or I'll tell you how to fix them. And they'll write you checks all day long because you're solving problems for them that save them time.
Great.
So, I like that. I just wanted to add on top of that, just to get super tactical, for people who are looking for these types of clients with high dollar amounts and are looking for your services right now, just go on the internet and search for any company in your vertical that just got funded. So if you're doing vegan products, look for somebody who just got funded in that space and then start making content for them. If you're in the tech space, look at the people who just got incubated or coming out and just have gotten their investment. Look for people who have this point in their position of their company where now they had just got this huge cash infusion and now they're ready to spend it. So now they're at that point where they have more money than time and they're ready to grow. So I think that would be a little pro tip for any of you guys who are looking at any vertical, no matter what you choose for the niche, to look for those types of clients and develop and grow in that space.
All right. So now I've given Aaron plenty of time to prepare. Aaron, now it's a good time for you to ask that question. Go ahead. Fire away.
There are no good questions. I'm not seeing anything good. They're
How
all
about
off
a question
topic.
from you, like as a freelancer, as a former freelancer? Do you have any questions or no?
Something quick. I don't know. Ricky, you want to help me out?
What are some things that people should be doing when they're in an agency to make sure that if they were to get released, they're not unprepared for it? What are some practical things they can be doing while they have a set job?
Can you hear that,
Build it.
Jonathan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Build an audience. Easy answer. Build an audience. So it's probably, and if I was going to get even more tactile, I'd say build an email list that caters to a particular
Oh, nice.
audience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, do that.
Great job. Okay. Matthew, and another question for Jonathan. Maybe we have time for one or two more and then we got to wrap it up.
No, I feel like my brain is swirling with a lot of stuff right now. So it's hard to pin it down on anything. I feel like we've covered a pretty big gamut. I can't.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
Then I know what. I'll ask Jonathan to ask himself a question. Jonathan, what's your best question to ask yourself?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there was something that came up earlier that I didn't loop back to that I'll just get to now, which was it's the why conversation and value pricing and the example Chris gave where it was like, hey, let me, you want me to make these videos, but let's talk about strategy type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Matt that asked this question, and sort of as an aside, casually remarked, and I know a lot of people think this, it feels like, or you might imagine if you've never done it, that the goal here is to pivot them into giving you more money or a higher profit engagement. It's really not. Like the fundamental feeling that I'm experiencing when I'm doing one of these meetings is not this jousting thing where I'm trying to figure out how to get the most money out of this client. It's absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I'm trying to see is, first of all, if they come to me and they say, hey, we want you to build this augmented reality experience for our retail stores, I am going to treat that like it's my brother or my mom or something. And I do not want to take their money. It could be $1 million. It could be $10 million. I don't want to take that money if they're going to be disappointed at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And they're disappointed at the end if we don't deliver some kind of results. They'll get fired. At those kind of numbers, they'll probably get fired.
Right.
So I don't want that. I have been there. I've seen it happen. I've seen people get fired for failed software projects. I can imagine the same would happen with a big design rebrand just completely flopping. I don't want that. I would rather not have the money, and I'd rather find another different client or have a different engagement that's lower risk for everybody. So I'm not trying to talk them into a bigger job. I'm not upselling them at all. I'm trying to make sure there is a good fit for a mutually profitable arrangement. And a mutually profitable arrangement is one where both parties profit. Even though they're giving me the money, seems like only I'm making a profit. But if I'm delivering them value over and above how much they gave me, they also made a profit. And in a B2B situation, they're not writing you checks for fun. They're writing checks to make their business better, AKA make their clients or their customers more happy, AKA increase their top end, increase their top line or their bottom line or something. They're trying to make more money somehow. And they believe that you can contribute to that in some small way, perhaps, or in some big way. I want to figure out what that is, make sure that I'm confident that we have agreed on a plan that is going to be beneficial to both of us, then I'll move forward. I am never, ever trying to upsell somebody into something that they don't need or something like that. I'm looking for something that's going to be a giant win for both of us. And when you do that, you start to do that regularly, marketing takes care of itself.
Mm. This is a big kind of mindset shift for a lot of people, because I often hear from creatives that it's like, oh, the clients, they just have such bad taste. They're ruining my art. And that's a disservice to creative people who are going to actually go out and be successful in their lives and their career. It's because it's all about you. It's all about me, me, me. It's the Marsha kind of thing that's going on, right? Where
well, if you hang out on Fiverr all the time, you're getting the worst possible clients, and you start to think all clients are like that, but they're not.
They don't believe us, though, Jonathan. What can you say? Because they're like, well, where I'm from, they pay $5 for this, and you guys are smoking glue. You're sniffing glue.
Right? Yeah, I get that all the time. It's easy for you. You're well known. It's like, well, get well known.
Right. I love it.
Hashtag get well known, you guys. Done. Well, all right. Excellent. I'm typing in the last little bits of my notes here. Okay, Jonathan, before I do the summary, I want to let people know how to get in touch with you. I think with some encouragement now, you have a YouTube channel, right?
Yes.
And what is the YouTube channel?
It's called The Jonathan Stark Show.
Hey,
creative, right?
It's kind of hard to remember. Jonathan Stark, The Jonathan Stark Show. You guys check him out. He's putting out content, and he's got a podcast also. I don't know how. Have you done like 500 episodes?
Yeah, altogether. I mean, I've got a bunch of podcasts.
Wow.
Ditching Hourly, The Business of Authority, Terrifying Robot Dog. Yeah, I'm a serial podcaster.
Yes, and he writes very prolifically. So if you guys sign up for his email list, I think there's some really valuable information he's sharing with the world, you guys. So whatever floats your boat, if you like to read, if you like to listen, or if you like to watch, he's got something for everybody. Okay, you guys, it's time. It's time for me to do my summary. I could not keep up with you, but here we go. Jonah, you got this summary. Here we go. Having laser-like focus, you described a magnifying glass. That's how you start a fire. That leads to marketing fire. And once the fire is burning, it's raging. Bad analogy for what's going on right now. Then you can diversify because now you're known. Hashtag get known, right? Experts become the obvious choice. So you want to be the obvious choice. Right now, you're not. And when you know your audience, there's no such thing as speaker's block. And if you're worried about specializing, becoming an expert, and you're going to get bored. Jonathan said, hey, look, I watch TED speakers. They seem to enjoy themselves. They're highly focused, and they're not bored at all. Since we didn't totally reference this, but we just talked about it, the 3 questions that you ask, and I love this: why this? Why now? Why me? Try asking those questions, you guys, in your next conversation with the client. See what happens. See what you learn. Think long or midterm versus the short term. According to Jonathan, if you put in 10 hours a week, this is what it's going to take. You could possibly build expertise in 18 months. So you got to start planting those seeds today, all right? And when you're invited to give advice, to be seen as a peer, as an equal, jump on that opportunity, run through that door. That's you starting that path towards leveling up. And you want to find people who have more money than time because they're more likely to solve problems by writing checks, and you want to be the recipient of those checks. Always be building an audience. I wanted it to be ABC, but I just couldn't do it. Always be building an audience. Better yet, an email list. That's more powerful, right? And finding a good fit means creating a situation or finding a situation that is mutually profitable for you and the client. My last little bullet point, hashtag get well known, you guys. Jonathan is the author of Freelancer's Roadmap. This is not the book cover. In it, he talks about tips, tricks, and tools. And you guys know it's $299. You guys can download it. But I've asked Jonathan to give you guys all a very special price. Check out this keynote animation, you guys.
Whoa! Boom! Oh my God!
Look at that!
Look at that!
Yes, I just break out all the stops. Actually, he's going to give it to you guys for $49. So instead of paying $299, everybody that's a Future member subscriber, you guys can have it for $49. I just lied to you guys.
Wow.
I just used price anchoring. It's probably one of the things he's going to talk about. When you float a really high price, the new price seems much more palatable. You see that? $299, $49 sounds very, very reasonable. Okay, so before we say goodbye, I just want to thank you guys all for hanging in there. We did break 500 people watching the live stream. That was awesome to see. It must be because of me. No, of course not. It's about me. It's all about Jonathan. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sustaining Member, for supporting us. You guys can get more information about Jonathan. It's jonathanstark.com. jonathanstark.com, you guys. Thank you very much, Jonathan. Guys, let's give him a round of applause, guys. There we go. There's my team. They've been waiting the whole time for that. Woo! All right.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Oh, my gosh.
Love it.
And we even ended on time, even though we started.